Welcome to the FiveStack. Olga Loudman is very kindly returned for another day because Dean is back, we hear, via his blog, but he won't be back on the show until Monday. But he sounds like he had an incredible time off. You should read this blog post that he has on his website because it talks about just being still and being by him, being connected with reality and real life and away from the what do you call it, the sim that we're all in. And I was like, oh, that sounds so lovely. It's so lovely to imagine wandering around these lovely Roman ruins and just saying, appreciating the whole
I
realness
know.
of it, the life
Sounds
of
like
it.
another planet.
It does. It does. It's been so long since I've had a vacation. It's crazy. I didn't even think about what that even feels like.
Yeah,
I
I
don't even know
haven't
how to,
had.
but it's hard to unplug. I think those that he was trying to illustrate in that piece is that it's so difficult to unplug, and when you unplug, there is real life out there. There is,
Yeah,
and yet here we are, still very much plugged in because the situation is quite urgent. Still, I mean, we're facing quite a set of circumstances now that is just getting more and more serious, and that's going to be a lot of the stories on the FiveStack today as we count down the top 5 stories of the day. Um, the biggest news, and this would normally be at number one, but we should cover it off the top because it is breaking news, is Trump has been on another tariff tear today. I mean, he really is gone nuts. He threatened a 50% tariff on all European Union goods starting on June 1st. On June 1st. That's crazy. While simultaneously, he just mentioned that he wants to do a 25% iPhone tariff on the iPhone because they have not moved their production from China to the United States, as he thinks it's his right to say that they should. Apparently, that's how it works now. Market reaction has been really bad. Apple stock plummeted 2 to 3% in pre-market trading. The S&P 500 traded dropped over 1%, and European markets are getting hammered with quite badly today. So we're talking about a lot of money, a lot of stuff being wiped out of the marketplace. It's unclear why he's doing this, although I can hazard a guess that he's really doing this because there's no progress with China on these talks, and there's no progress on the EU with their talks. So you've got no progress on both fronts. He's just throwing out these threats in order to get something moving. Do you think it's going to work? I mean, it's if they don't want to talk, they
someone
don't want to
just
talk.
put this out, a comment, and I am so sorry I missed the name, but 100% correct. He is furious that one, he couldn't force Ukraine to surrender to Russia, and two, that Europe is supporting Ukraine. Not only that, they actually bypassed the United States and sanctioned Russia, put more sanctions
Hmm.
on Russia and whatever their
Right, right. So that's what he's upset
17
about.
package. This is the only explanation. He probably got a call from the Kremlin, like, Donald, what are you doing? And now he thinks he's going to bully, um, the Europeans in abandoning Ukraine. Interestingly enough, on my show Pax Americana a few weeks ago, we actually had this discussion how Trump is going to, use tariffs in order to try to force EU to break support of Ukraine, to, try to force them to stop sanctioning Russia and whatnot. And I personally think this is it because I mean, for him to randomly come out, I mean, this is not, there's no rhyme or reason for it, for him to randomly post 50% tariffs on EU in a week.
Yeah, I mean, look, there was a Treasury Secretary Bessent said earlier today on Fox News that they've had no progress really in their talks with the EU. He said this was designed to light a fire under the EU because they haven't come to the table with the same kind of, I guess, enthusiasm. I don't know if anyone's been enthusiastic, but other countries are negotiating in sort of good faith with the United States on their tariffs.
Where?
Well, they're claiming at least, and India,
Where?
he says India is. I don't know, although a lot of these iPhones are made in India, so it's
Well,
interesting.
this is why he's angry
Yeah.
because he literally, I was just reading this story, the iPhone story, because, I update my iPhone. Um, and literally, he is angry that they're not going to produce here and that they're producing in India. So, I mean, I can't really be too happy with India, if, he is,
He can't expect them to be making these iPhones here. There's not a chance in the world that you could make
no.
those massive production facilities in China and move them here, it would be astronomical to produce an iPhone. I mean,
Yeah.
an iPhone would cost $10,000 by the time you paid them American wages and all these other things. Never mind, how do you build a factory like that without without that sort of built-in DNA that they have in the manufacturing sector there? Here, we just don't build like that, and we couldn't build like that, and nor should we be building like that because it's too darn expensive. That's why we do the things we do with world trade. So, this idea of bringing every production back home, I mean, it's a fairy tale. It's nonsense. It's like it's a fever dream. It's not going to happen. And so he knows that. He knows it's a fairy tale. I mean, there's no ways he actually thinks they could do it. So he's
No.
obviously just doing this because the Chinese continue to not wanting to deal with him. I mean, you point out the EU is very consciously, probably because of Ukraine, because of these other factors, is not playing ball on the EU tariffs, and the Chinese are not playing ball because they have the upper hand here, and this is actually working in their favor. But for him to then gaslight the entire market as he is right now, you know, no doubt he's got shorts on the market today that will ensure that he'll make money and his insiders will make money and Duffy and Bondi and MTG will all be making money today because they probably got a heads up that he was going to do this. But meanwhile, the market's having a rough day. It's just under down 143 now. But you can tell when he does one of these things that it's a pump and dump a lot of the times, and he's probably going to benefit from it. And the inside circle is going to benefit from it, and everybody else who's sort of an institutional investor or just a mom and pop kind of investor, you're losing money because Donald Trump had some fever dream about, bringing Tim Cook's Apple factory production back to the United States. It's not happening.
And then just to, add on to this authoritarian aspect, who in the hell is the federal government to tell
Right.
a private company where to produce? I mean, are we now really in Russia where now, they're going to demand it's what Apple going to be under investigation next because they don't want to move, or and bend the knee to Trump and move production here. And this is the second company that he went after Walmart, threatening them, don't, people are watching, don't lift prices. So, I mean, who is the federal government to tell a private company? This is why people,
Exactly.
um, you know, open and trust the American economy is because there is a separation between the government and private entities and also rule of law. And he's erasing the rule of law. He's erasing the separation between private entities and the government. And that's it. And I mean, and then you see it very clearly. I mean, the stock market is, acting very delusional um, the past few months because, frankly, it should be about 20% lower from everything that is happening. But I think it hasn't fully absorbed, you know, what is happening um and is in denialism. But look at the bond market. I mean, really, like, people are dumping, US treasuries because they don't trust the US government anymore.
That's
And
the key thing. That
and
really is
that
the
is
key thing.
that it's over. I think last I checked it was like 5 point something percent, and for the 30 year, and the 20 years upwards of almost 4.6. I
And that
mean, this
causes
is
that forecasts a complete recession. I mean, the minute you get these interest rates rising and everyone can't afford their houses and can't afford their cars, we will be sunk into a massive recession that is going to be very hard for us to get out of. So he is willingly pushing the American economy into recession because he's making all these dumb moves or, really radical moves. I mean, you don't out of just because you woke up a certain way, decide to say that Apple iPhone should be 25% more expensive. You just don't do that because of this exact reason. You don't want to be viewed around the world as irrational or so risky that no one wants to invest in you. And now it's exactly what's happening. The world is looking at America as being erratic and inconsistent. And why should they invest their money here? Why should they buy bonds here? Or anything here because it's insecure. You don't know whether one day the new king is going to wake up in a bad mood and suddenly slap you with another 50% of tariffs, no matter what it is. I mean, this is why it's such a bad idea to have this guy as the president of the United States. And I'm on top of all the other insane things that they were doing yesterday in that bill, which we'll get to in a second. This really is him rubbing the nose of America, like just destroying the American reputation. It's just a destruction of the American
On
reputation.
every front,
Yeah.
every front. He's chasing away scientists from this country. He's chasing away investors from this country. He's chasing everything away. We used to, at least America, for the most part. I mean, look, America's far beyond perfect, but for the most part, if it gave its word, you had a stable policy. Here, there's no stable foreign policy or economic policy or any policy. And even to think about the damage to all the scientists, besides the fact that, every single university is going to have to lay off people, and this is more job cuts.
Hmm.
That are happening from all the research facilities shutting down. You have the most genius minds fleeing. Right before we got on, I was just reading that the Hong Kong University in Hong Kong
Hmm.
is inviting students, since they're being kicked out of Harvard. And you have EU who are quickly working on, making it easier to obtain a visa so they could get these scientists
Yeah.
and, these genius
Macross said,
minds.
come, we'll have you. Come over.
Yes, yes,
I
we'll
guarantee
pay
you
for
we'll
you.
have you.
We'll
Yeah.
everything for you. Yep.
So, I don't understand the rationale here. I mean, at the end of the day, what are they trying to do? Like have a completely isolated America that's hated by the rest of the world, disrespected by the rest of the world, that will be bankrupting every American because they won't be able to afford the basic living anymore because we can't afford, our supplies that we're getting from overseas because the tariffs are so high. We can't, the interest rates are going so high because the bond market is so terrible. They don't want to see invest in here. That you got to pay these excruciatingly high interest rates. What is this the plan? Is this the plan to completely bankrupt America and leave it
Well,
so isolated without any foreign influence, without any foreigners inside the borders? Is this really what MAGA is about? I mean, is this really what these people voted for? Because it is the most corrupt, the most disgusting, unbelievably bad policy you could think of in the entire world.
Mega is a cult. I mean, frankly, they don't understand, any of this. So they voted because he told them to vote and sold them, a pipe dream. But if you look from the lens of there is one country on this in the world who would love to see the implosion and collapse of America. In this country, Russia, for decades and decades and decades, has run many operations to see the dollar collapse, to see the economy collapse, to see U.S. reputation collapse, to see the superpower status disappear and collapse, to see a polarized America that is sick and poor and divided. So if you look from the lens, Russia is extremely happy every single day. They're sitting there and watching this freaking banana republic, as I call it now. I have a joke, which is a sad joke, with my dad, and I call it Trumpistan. Like we're an oblast or region of Russia. I
Yeah.
mean, like this, he's turning it into Trumpistan. How is the United States ever going to go to Russia and say you cannot prosecute your opponents when this is what we're doing, or you cannot launch a full-scale invasion of a neighbor when we're threatening to invade Canada and Greenland? I mean, so frankly, not, there is one country who is benefiting from all of this.
I
It's
was gonna
not
say, yeah.
China, because China wants a stable US so they could continue stealing the intellectual property and making money off the US. But Russia doesn't export anything except
I'm going to
oil
push back. I'm going to push
and
back a little bit.
terrorists.
I'm going to be pushed back. It's been an interesting conversation because I do think it's China as well. I mean, I think when you look at the world stage, China and Russia are so locked in together. They have such a 30-year plan that they've designed to be strategic partners. This is public policy, it's public. Everyone knows this, that they are militarily, strategically, trade aligned. In every way, they view their future as a united sort of front against the West. So when Russia benefits, so does China, and vice versa. And so I've always thought of China as being sort of like the quiet, silent partner in this war, where really it's Russia that's doing the front attacking, but behind the scenes, all the money, all the support, all you see it in the Russian economy, all the buying of this oil, all the support of the Russian economy during this time is ultimately coming from China. Where it is the Russia does not have these kinds of funds to survive what's going on right now. It's only because of China's support, indirect or directly for the military effort. I don't know, probably indirect now, but certainly financially supporting Putin's policies because of this the 30-year strategy. So I think it is those two countries against the West, and I think that's the way to look at it.
Can I counter push
Yeah,
back?
of course, that's what we're here for.
So, yes, I agree. China and Russia have a strategic partnership, but I can tell you that the Russians like the Chinese as much as they like freaking, I don't know, whatever the worst thing is. They absolutely hate the Chinese. It's a historical thing. The Russians literally are always looking over their back to make sure China's not invading a part of, the Far East, Russian territory in the Far East. The Chinese do not like the Russians. Strategically, they'll stand shoulder to shoulder, to push back against the West. But the Chinese are also constantly worried about an invasion. I'll give you a perfect example. In February, we had Chinese New Year. If hopefully I've been the one Chinese New Year that I am celebrating. It is the year of the snake. The year of the
Why is
snake
that? Why is
has
that the one you celebrate?
because the year of the snake has brought all the turmoil that's happened over the past more than a century. In Russia, everything has happened in the year of the snake.
Ah, okay.
Stalin dying, the beginning of the Soviet Union collapse, the revolutions. I mean, if you look at every year of the snake
Hmm.
and what happens in domestic Russian politics or the collapse of Russia,
Yeah.
it always happens to coincide with the year of the snake. Anyway, the Chinese on their New Year, Happy New Year and Year of the Snake, had a viral video that they allowed to go forward, basically, because they know also the history of Russia. Um, they allowed a viral video of basically which parts of Russia are they going to occupy and take for China during their Happy New Year. And I even wrote an article. I said, "Oh, this is hilarious because you have, the Chinese who publicly stand shoulder to shoulder, but they're both distrustful of each other, and there's a lot of historical context I'm not going to get into. And the last thing I'll say, even during the full-scale invasion, as much support that China has been providing for Russia, and trust me, I've been tracking all the military stuff
Mm.
going to China and from China to Russia. um as much support. Russia arrested all their hypersonic scientists in an institute and charged them with treason. And I was like, oh, here we go. They're either going to say these people,
Mm.
committed treason and sold secrets to the United States or Ukraine. China. They were charged with treason and sentenced to life for quote unquote selling secret hypersonic technology to China. And
I mean,
this
look,
happened like in 22, 23. So,
China's not a unified entity either. I mean, there are a lot of cliques inside the
yeah,
Chinese Communist Party, lots of things that don't make sense because they're oftentimes so contradictory. But in this particular case, when I see what, the people that surround Donald Trump and have surrounded the Kushner family, like Wendy Deng, and when you look at the Gua Wengi, and when you look at
yeah.
Bannon, there's lots of you can look at
The
a lot of
crypto
crypto,
fraudster,
all the
son.
Binance money that's coming from crypto
Hmm.
is a good point. All the money that's currently washing through the the Trump White House or at least the Trump Towers, because that's where he's getting all the money, is a lot of it is Chinese money and the lease money, of course, but it's a lot of it is that's where it comes from. So, to me, there's a connection between the Chinese and the Russia and the White House. There's a connection between Russia and the White House, and there's a connection between the Russia and the Chinese that you sort of it's they might play both sides, and they surely do play both sides. But on the other hand, it looks to me like they have the most to gain. At the end of the day, America's decline is China's biggest gain. I mean, they become the main superpower at that point. So, if they can achieve it, it works for them. Even if they can achieve a little bit of it by getting the US dollar to be less of a currency around the world, and the renminbi becomes more powerful, or crypto becomes more powerful, that works for them. I mean, it just helps them
Yeah.
along the way. Anyhow, it's a good conversation. Thanks for having it with me.
We
Push
can
back.
go back and forth on this.
Push back anytime, though. It's good. I love that because I think it's important for people
Mm,
to understand, to see the nuances here. Um, there's a story out of the San Diego newspapers I just want to share with you. Sorry. Because it's really interesting. These ICE agents keep showing up at courtrooms
yes.
around the country, arresting people who are there for legal proceedings, right? They're just showing up, they're doing what they need to do to protect their status, and they keep showing up and arresting these people. Um, and they did this in San Diego the other day. The guy passed out while he was. Let me read this to you so I get it absolutely right. ICE agents were stationed outside immigration courtrooms with target lists, and they already detained 6 people by Thursday afternoon. One man was literally walking out of the courtroom with his attorney when agents surrounded him. They handcuffed him, and he collapsed face down in the hallway, gasping and sweating. His attorney repeatedly demanded to see a warrant and called the arrest unlawful. The ICE agents responded to the hyperventilating man, "Take a breath, man. It's not that serious." After a few minutes, they realized they had the wrong person and uncuffed him. Paramedics then had to evaluate this guy outside of the courthouse. So this guy, passes out from shock that he's being targeted at a courthouse. And then their response to him is, "Take a breath, man. It's not that serious." Not serious for them, but serious for him if he's going to be landing up in El Salvador or South Sudan, or who knows where he might land up. This is unbearable that they can't see what they're doing to people's lives, and the fact that they're invading these courthouses and arresting people when they're there for legal processes, just it makes me sick.
I mean, the one issue I have with Democrats, honestly, is we saw this happen in 2017. And, there are a few things that will move me. But in 2017, I remember seeing videos of mothers dropping, their kids off at a school bus and then being arrested. And I just cannot picture the trauma of a little kid watching his mother being taken away and never seeing her. Like, I'm going to tear up now.
Of
I mean, when it
course.
comes to kids, it's something. We saw the worst abuses by ICE 2017, 2018, the family separations, the kidnapping of children, the human rights, abuses. And the fact that, from 21 until last year, well, granted, Congress was in the hands of the Republicans had the House, there, I should have been investigated. And here they are, back like emboldened to the point that now they're really acting like a lawless. I mean, when I
Mm,
used to call them Gestapo back then,
they
and I
are.
will and I will repeat it. And again, it's not every agent, but I think that this agency should have been disbanded and restarted with proper training, and and actually where we put human rights
Mm.
first, and stealing children from parents, or deporting people who are, I mean, arresting people without a warrant, without presenting who you are. In a lot of cases, these people, and they did the same thing in 2017. They show up with a mask. I mean, if a dude showed up with a
Or,
mask and tried to arrest me, I mean, I'd freaking, fight and kick and scream
or
and beat
plain
the
clothes.
person.
They're wearing plain clothes. Like, you don't even know who they
Yes.
are. They're just
No.
people handcuffing you, throwing you to the ground. This guy passed out. I mean,
And this is the problem, and they've did this, and they continue to do this, and we've seen now videos, like upon videos from 2017, 2018 to now. I mean, one guy had the wrong identity and smashed a car window as the guy sitting on the phone with his lawyer. I mean, they are completely unhinged, unrestricted, emboldened. And if we really get, this country back one day, this agency really needs to be on top of the list of what needs to be
oh,
disbanded
for sure.
and rebuilt properly,
It's a
because
criminal organization, frankly. I mean, what they're doing is
it
criminal. They're pulling people out of their, private lives, out of their families' lives, and putting them into camps, and then deporting them to countries that have no human rights records and have nothing to do with these people. And then they're putting them in these awful prison camps for months. I mean, there's people there that have been stuck there for months already. We don't know when they'll be out. We have no idea when they're going to be able to get out, if they're going to be able to get out at all. And so this is, at some point we have to have a presidential crimes commission. I know some Congress people are talking about it, but it's really necessary that we have a this continuing criminality that's happening in daylight, and people need to be. And I know you're doing a lot of this, and thankfully you're doing so much of this on the Trump tyranny tracker. But we need to really understand every single criminal act that is going on day after day after day, whether it's contempt for no, ignoring the contempt um, rulings by the courts, or whether it's deporting people without due process, or whether it's starving people, or whether it's closing all these agencies where you've got people around the world that are relying on this thing. This is criminal. It's criminal.
And you know what is really worrying me, and the trend, that I see picking up? So the new fiscal year begins in October 2024. Through now, there have been nine now. We had spoken about this last month. Now, nine deaths in ICE custody.
Mm,
What in the hell is happening in ICE? Like, what are they doing to these people?
right.
And this is a very serious issue because, prior to Trump, the United States, went around that we value human rights and supported human
Yeah.
rights around the
Right.
globe, and, criticized countries like Russia where this happens, where you have mass thugs who come and grab you in plain clothes. You don't know who the hell they are, who will beat you, like right on the street, unconscious, who will, cut out parts of your body and
Yeah.
videotape it. And we have this, and we would criticize this. Why do we have an agency who carries out these things the same
It's
way? I mean,
I
mine is a cutting of parts, but I mean, frankly, the abuses that we have seen from them, and and like I said, the family separation, what happened in 2017 and 18 is unforgivable. The fact that they were never held accountable. And
yeah.
here they are now, completely, emboldened. And they will do whatever they want on top of it with ICE. Trump is hiring more like private mercenaries to carry out these same things. And they are literally breaking the law. They're not following legal procedure,
Yeah.
they're not following human rights, they're not following anything.
And it's the disregard that they treat people with. I mean, just because they're of a different color, the lack of humanity, the lack of just of empathy with what might be like to have to be go to court in the morning because you're trying to deal with your legal status, and you're there with your immigration attorney doing what you should be doing because you're following the rules of your immigration by going to court, and you're following what the judge is telling you. And then these thugs are standing outside there grabbing you, throwing you to the ground. You collapse because you're concerned about the fact that you may not see your family that day because you might be deported somewhere, and thrown into a prison somewhere. And and this inhumanity to realize that this person is doing their civic duty by being there, by following the immigration rules, by going to see the lawyer, by the judge, by going to hiring lawyers and following all the rules to arrive there, and to find that that's when they grab them, and then it's the wrong person. They finally
Yeah.
the lawyer checks in, and it's like, actually, no, this is the wrong person you've just thrown to the ground, that you are going to disrupt their entire life and throw them to the wolves in El Salvador, and you think that that's okay? That's
Yeah.
it's
And then add on to it for people who, are like, oh, it's immigrants. Well, guess what? Americans are being picked up by ICE too.
of
And we
course.
had discussed, a story, which frankly, again, is something that should have never been allowed to happen in this country, where ICE picks up a US citizen, holds him for 10 hours,
Mhm.
and doesn't even allow him to call a lawyer to do anything. And then when they finally release him because they prove he's an American citizen, they don't even document that they held him. I mean, the whole point of America is the fact. I mean, we always joke about bureaucracy. You go, for any agency, you have to fill out 10 million papers. I mean, even if you're, you know, whatever it is, even if it's a police report because someone like,
Yeah, you just have
dinged you or
to
they will come with like a whole book of things and they're filling out because everything in a lawful country has to be
has to
documented.
be. And
And here you have people who aren't even bothering to document this. I mean, like I said, if we ever get this country back, really, we need to make it a priority to make sure that this ICE is disbanded and they need to restart it, remove that name, restart it, and hire new people with proper training. Keep the people who've never had any offenses, they could transfer them over. But really, this whole thing needs to be, redone.
I mean, and the response that this guy has. So this ice guy says, "Take a breath, man. It's not that
Yeah,
serious."
that's
You
it's
know what?
disgusting.
We all would like to breathe again, frankly. The world has not breathed for the last 120 whatever days, and has not breathed for the last 8 years because of this nonsense that keeps, we all would like to take a breath and think that it's not that serious, but it is actually that
Yeah,
serious.
very serious.
Everywhere we look, there is criminality taking place on behalf of the US government, on behalf of the US president, like it's okay. And and then on top of this, we'll just move into the next story of the day because it fits right in. The Republicans have passed this bill that strips judges of their power to hold government officials accountable, and we spoke about this twice today already, but the judicial independence is being really threatened by this removal of this power to be able to hold any official in the U.S. administration under contempt by a court. According to this new legislation that they've snuck into this new big beautiful bill, is that the judges have no power over the administration anymore to do anything other than really write them letters saying, we advise you to do this thing. But they have no ability to hold someone in contempt, no ability to throw anyone in jail. I mean, this is the basis of our separation of governments, of our checks and balances. This is why the system is built this way. And the Republicans just happily go in. These Republicans who are these were the constitutional Republicans. These like absolute, like this is the way the Constitution was written. These guys are just slipping in a law in the dead of night into a huge bill that takes away the judge's right to basically convict or do anything with an administration official.
Yeah, these are these are also free, what is it, free enterprise Republicans who thought that the government had no right
Right.
in meddling in private companies.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
exactly.
these are the hypocrisy Republicans, and they will do, say whatever and do whatever it is to keep power. Um, yeah, this legislation, we actually have power to stop it. Call your senators because I mean. Look, we saw Trump, and again, this is very predictable. Any dictator who takes power, he needs to one seize all the agencies and install, his loyalist, and two, dismantle the rule of law. Because you can't have rule of law to hold you accountable. You have to, dismantle it and rewire the rule of law in order to be able to weaponize it against your opponents. I
Exactly,
mean, this is
exactly.
a dictator 101. And we saw Trump, simultaneously gutting the federal government, purging, all career employees, and installing, Christy Nome, who, when you ask her what habeas corpus is, she
Just no
says that
idea.
it's, oh, her definition. Oh, this gives the president the right to deport anyone. What? Like, what constitution are
I mean,
you reading? And what
exactly. Who's
language
telling
are
her
you
this?
reading? And what? I
Like,
mean, maybe
yeah.
she's either that stupid or and actually thinks that's what it is, or maybe she's just, spreading the propaganda of the regime. But bottom line is, you saw that, Trump's first attack was on the rule of law. He went after law firms. He has gone after judges. I mean, we have judges who are now dealing with death threats and worried on whether the marshals will protect them because we don't know. I mean, Trump might order the marshals, no, drop security for this judge. and
Hmm.
these judges, could get killed.
Hmm.
And we already saw it happen under the first term with Trump when a judge, they came to kill a judge. I believe it was in New Jersey, my neighboring state, and killed her son instead. Um, and I mean, and again, at that time, he was threatening judges. So this is something we really, really, because this is, again, the last line of defense is the American people. This is the last check on this
Hmm.
sociopathic regime is the American people. But before us, it's supposed to be the courts. The Congress is a, rubber stamp for Trump. They'll do whatever he says. And the courts are supposed to be the last check besides us. And he is doing everything, everything in his power to remove this last check on him and his powers and his grab for power and his illegal acts by attacking, the courts and trying to basically twist the rule of law for to work for him.
That's such an important point because what you really are saying, the founders anticipated that we would have these kinds of, of challenges. They knew that we were going to have these kind of moments in history where there'd be conflict and there'd be people trying to become dictators, and so they created the checks and balances for that reason. And so this is why we rely on the mechanisms of government to stop this kind of encroachment, because we know that that's what it's designed to do, and we have to exhaust those options before we do anything else. And so what we're seeing is, if he's successful in stopping judges from having this one thing. I mean, judges really don't have that much they can do against administration officials, but they have the contempt power. This is, a unique power that allows them to compel officials to come and testify, compel them to get evidence, compel them to answer for themselves. And if that is taken away from the judges, if that is taken, it takes away all the teeth from the judiciary. We've seen this in other parts of the world. Authoritarians have tried to do this kind of thing, like Israel.
Oh,
We've seen
absolutely.
this is exactly what they try and do. So, this is a critical point for everybody. We need to ensure that this piece of legislation, this provision, is completely excluded from this bill. And I think there are efforts to do that already underway, but everyone should call their senators nonstop until it's done, because this is the kind of thing that if it slips through, it's going to be very hard to get democracy back in place. It really is.
Yeah,
Number
no,
so,
and just to add one last thing, I
mm,
mean, we are in a constitutional crisis because frankly, the courts can compel, testimony and Trump can say a few, as we've seen him disregarding, but at least if we maintain this and keep this, out of the bill, at least we can then later, if we get the country, seek accountability. I mean, this
yeah.
is, right now we need to document everything and make sure that every single one of these people that starting from Trump on down are held accountable to the last ICE agent, to everyone.
Hmm.
Anyone who's taking and following illegal orders needs to be held accountable once we get this country back.
Absolutely. It's important. Others, it keeps happening. The number two story is all about Harvard. We spoke about it last hour, but a federal judge has now blocked one of the most authoritarian moves we've seen yet. Actually, Trump's attempt to ban Harvard University from enrolling international students. It's, still, I can't believe I'm saying those words out loud,
I
because you've got the most, august institution of learning in America, where you've got the world's best, the brightest minds want to go there. It's such a bright, shining light for America to have Harvard. And then he is now telling them that they can't enroll international students. And there are many current international students there that are freaking out, because what does that mean to their hard work and all the dedication and all the effort that they put in to going to Harvard, and their careers that they've invested in Harvard, and the potential products that they're invested in Harvard? And now, what does it mean? Do they have to go and restart all that effort just because Donald Trump wants to control the curriculum of the Harvard? I mean, there's no other reason to do this. He just wants all the power to control what people learn and study, and whether they can protest and all this other stuff on a private university.
Yeah. And what's interesting, I mean, I don't even know what's happening with the international students because Rubio just testified a few days before Congress and said that, he signed off on approximately 7,000 student visa revocations. So you could just imagine, and I'm sure the main targets were Harvard and Columbia. But again, this goes back to Trump is destroying our credibility everywhere in every sector of American life,
Mm.
whether it's the economy, foreign policy, you know, who what we represent as Americans. And here, Harvard is the gold standard. I mean, this is a university that everyone around the world wants to go to.
Mm.
They pay full price, they pay, double the full price because international students, unlike American students, don't get discounts. They don't get, financial aid
Yeah.
and student loans and whatnot. I mean, they have to pay for it. And again, he's chasing away, potential I call it students from coming here who will contribute to American society
Yeah. We
because
want to
it's
come here
not that
because they
they
want to stay
study here.
here.
Yeah, they come here, they get trained, and then they put back into our society. And this goes over like the bigger picture in Russia. I mean, and I hate to keep bringing in Russia, but I mean, frankly, I'm like reliving this movie. In Russia, everything from kindergarten on up is controlled. Like, well, first grade on up is controlled by the state. Every book that you read, everything that you do, um, every thought you have is controlled by the university. I mean, this is the best way, to indoctrinate the future generations is to hijack universities. And colleges, and frankly, all schools. And Harvard right now and Columbia are test cases, and basically, like we've discussed many times, he's using immigration, international students, and pro-Palestinian, protests. These are all covers for them to test out, what works, how far they can get, which will be turned against all of us because if people think that he's going after Harvard over pro-Palestinian protest, absolutely not. He is doing it to quell any potential, future protests that American students will have against this regime. And historically, every revolution, every movement, to push back against a dictator across the world has started inside of universities. I mean, this
It's
is
a very good
the
point.
key
Exactly right.
uh,
We've seen
point.
in South Africa, that's where it all came from. We That's where it originates from. It originates from the universities, and he's trying to make sure that these are suppressed. But if he's trying to suppress the ability for university students to protest, what he's really doing is signaling how horrendous his plans are. That he really is building an authoritarian state
Yeah,
here. That he really is turning it
absolutely.
into a police state. That he is planning to use all these forces that he's used against these immigrants. That he's going to use it against ordinary citizens next. That he's going to
Mhm.
be, committing potential genocide. That he's going to turn America into, Nazi Germany. That he's planning on launching exercises of world war or, imperial expansion. That this is his plan. That he plans to
Yeah.
make life for Americans incredibly difficult by making them suffer through this economic policy that is just starving Americans. This is his plan. That's otherwise he would
Yeah.
not need to prepare
Yeah.
these universities to be so suppressive. He wouldn't need to. He would just let them continue doing what they're doing. But he knows he needs to do this to them. He needs to do it to the courts. He needs to do it to the media. He needs to do it to the academia. That's how he gets to complete this picture of America as a white nationalist Christian thing that he's building. I don't know what he's building, but this is basically what it takes.
And just to like drive home the point of indoctrination, we discussed it the other day. You have the Oklahoma superintendent who is now rewriting the history books to basically, say that the 2020 election was stolen. I mean, this is what students are going to be learning,
Oh
when
yeah.
they're reading their history book, when they're, studying social studies. That the 2020 election was stolen and that Joe Biden was not a legitimate president. Now, can you imagine taking the what's happening in Oklahoma and expanding it across every single city, town, village, state in America? from, again, kindergarten or pre-K here, where they'll try to indoctrinate you, all the way to university. So
And this is
here
exactly
we
what
are.
happens in China. This is exactly what happens in these communist countries. The GOP used to be so hateful about. They would say, the one thing they don't want to do is turn into a communist China. And what are they turning? They're turning into that exact same system, an authoritarian system that is so micro-controlling that you can't speak your mind, you have no political protest, your entire life is beholden to the king or the leader or whatever it is, and
No
you're
opposition
left.
parties.
Yeah, and you have no freedom. I mean, at the end of the day, the GOP is destroying America's freedoms and destroying the American Constitution. It's saddening and maddening all at the same time. Finally, the top story of the day, we also touched on this last hour, which is all about the President of the United States rewarding people who seem to be hate, hate mongers who just don't, who support things that are Nazi-like, that are not even Nazi-like, swastikas.
Oh,
They have meme coins that are Pepper the Frog. This was at an
one
official
account, F the Jews. That
F
was
the
the name
Jews.
of one of
So
the accounts that bought a meme coin who attended dinner yesterday with the crypto dinner. F the Jews.
So this supposed anti-Semitic, anti-anti-Semitic president that we have, Donald Trump, the man who says he's fighting against anti-Semitism, is dining with his crypto supporters who have F the Jews and swastikas and Pepper the Frog as the name of their accounts. So all those people who think that by supporting Trump, you're supporting a president that's against anti-Semitism need to really think that through, because that's who he's dining with. That's who he allowed into his prized VIP experience at his Virginia golf course. Is a bunch of Nazis, basically. It's just it could not be any more
And
ridiculous. It could not be any more
and
ridiculous.
again, what gets me so frustrated and angry is that half of America chose this. Do they not remember him carrying on how wonderful David Duke is in
Mhm.
2016? Do they not remember Charlottesville, where they were marching against the Jews, white supremacist Nazis marching against the Jews? Do they not remember him dining with Nick Fuentes the last year, it was, I believe,
Yeah,
that he had Nick Fuentes in his, Mar-a-Lago? So, I mean, this is something like he hasn't hidden what he's doing. He's told
no.
us what he's going to do. He's just carrying out with what he has promised,
Although
and
this
the
is
fact
different. This is different than the first administration. I think
there were
there is
guardrails.
yeah, there's no guardrails and there's a determination,
No,
and they're executing this in a way that is incredibly organized. Now, I do find it very fast what they're doing, but as I've warned before, 6 months is a real mark historically to look at. If we get to 6 months and these guardrails, these constitutional um, concerns that we have around like these contempt rights that judges have, if that's gone after 6 months, it's very difficult to get democracy back. This authoritarians don't just arrive, they don't just say, hey, I'm here, and suddenly shut down the system. It's a
no.
slow creep, right? That happens over a period of time.
Well, here he's bulldozing.
Yeah, I mean,
Thank God
it's
for
a quick slow,
us.
but it happens over a period of time.
Yeah,
You're not, it doesn't happen in a day. You're eased into it. Getting out of that is very difficult. Reversing that, it takes decades, decades of time. So we don't have 2 years, 4 years, whatever it is. We need to protect every single bit of our constitution every single day, under every circumstance. We need to push back on absolutely everything, because without that, within 2 months, you can see how the system is going to get completely bulldozed, and he'll be able to do whatever he wants to do, and we'll never get it back.
yeah, and just to reiterate what you're saying, I mean, it is a slow creep right now he's bulldozing through, but I mean, this started 10 years ago. The
Mhm.
amount of norms that have been thrown out the window over the past decade, from the minute that, Agent Orange crawled down the gaudy gold escalator and started attacking Mexican judges
Yeah.
and going after I mean, he literally has thrown every norm out. And, to the point, yeah, he didn't get much accomplished the first term because he didn't know how the government works. I mean,
Mhm.
you had a freaking con artist, mafia owned, Russian owned businessman who came into Washington, D.C. And he had people who actually did, take an oath to the Constitution and serve the Constitution. But he learned what the obstacles were and had, between him, Project 2025, and the Heritage Foundation, they had time to prepare that once they came in, they had X amount of days to quickly unravel everything and, remove the guardrails, remove all the key people who were, holding down the fort the first term around, eliminate those positions, eliminate the watchdogs, and here we are here. So I mean, now they came prepared, and they are taking this over very quickly. And just to go to the story number one, just think how I mean, like batshit crazy this is that you have the president of the United States, who freaking, has all these crypto companies and coins, and his wife has a coin, and everyone around him has a coin. And people from around the world are pouring money in to buy access to him, not even for this dinner. I mean, this has been
Yeah.
happening. I mean, I think we've already like, how many times have we spoken about a crypto scandal?
Oh,
For
every other
either
day.
him or exactly.
It's
And
constant.
here he's organizing, this dinner with a bunch of fascist, racist, anti-Semites from foreign countries to attend, that they have to buy his coin that they dumped right after to
Mhm.
buy access to him to get a White House tour that was advertising until his website removed it. And, then there are even reports that he plans, for the highest bidders to give them, front row seats of his military freaking Russian style parade that
Bring the
is
Nazis. Bring the Nazis over to come see the military parade. I mean, fantastic. This is,
yeah,
and of course, what they're doing is buying favor with the president. They're corrupting
absolutely.
the presidency. They're busy making him rich. They're supporting his stable coin. Which his sons have now got a deal with the UAE,
Hmm.
to $2 billion.
Yep.
$2 billion. This is not some little bribe. This is a
No,
$2 billion bribe for the stable
that
coin.
we know
And
of.
yeah, that we know of. And these guys show up and they're Nazi sympathizers and they have Nazi meme coins. And this is the reality of America as we step into this, like, as you keep counting the days here, 125 days, and we are getting so close to a point of no return because we're seeing too much happening now that is very concerning about the American Constitution, about the checks and balances, about our basic freedoms, about our institutions and their ability to operate independently and privately with its universities or courts, or whether it's just our own human rights, our abilities to walk in the streets or walk into a courthouse without being thrown into the ground by some ICE guy who's going to try and arrest you or deport you, and it's the wrong person. You're not even the right guy, and then tells you to take a breath because it's not so serious. Everything's very serious right now. The world is in a, America's got a serious challenges ahead, and this is a moment is extremely serious.
And just to add, look, Trump is one person. I frankly don't even blame him for this because he is one person carrying this out, you know, and he told us who he is. He didn't hide any of this. He
Yeah,
never once, maybe the media created, oh, maybe today he might be presidential, and you remember the first term oh, I think this is the day he's going to act presidential. Then he
yeah.
came out
This is
rambling some batshit crazy stuff, and they're like, no, let's try again next week. I blame the Republican Party. They could put a stop to this. They are the ones who are fully supporting him. Because if you strip the Trump, and had the Republican Party stand up against him, he wouldn't be able to even do one of these things that we're talking about.
yeah.
But here they are. We don't know what dinner, what crypto. I don't know nothing about crypto. What is crypto? We don't know nothing. Can you imagine Joe Biden or Obama or any other president selling access openly on his website, saying you have to invest, the minimum is $1 million. You have to invest in my, coin to have a conversation with me to tell me what you want. And maybe I'll give it to you, maybe I won't. Can you imagine that? I
No, I
mean,
mean it would never
really?
happen. Firstly, but the fact that they went after him with such a witch hunt, and then here
Yeah.
he is. grabbing those money from every corner. So just so greedy.
And every
Like, oh,
weekend, I
yeah,
mean, the day he tanked our the stock market, I'll never forget. What was he doing?
dinner with the
Golfing with
Saudis.
the Saudis uh, before going to his $1 million per head dinner. What president has $1 million per head dinner?
And now he's doing these tariffs, alleged threatened tariffs against the iPhone and against the EU, all designed to really drive down the market and to create another sort of chaotic moment in the economy. He does not care about America. He hates America.
No, he
He
does hate America.
absolutely hates America. No person who cared about America would take even one of these actions. Never mind all of these actions. And day after day, we see how much he hates this country and how much he wants to destroy this country. There's just no
And
other way to look at it.
and I hate to keep bringing Russia up, but I always have to bring Russia up. It was 1987 when, a real estate con man who was hiring undocumented immigrants to build his Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue, traveled to the Soviet Union and came back and decided, to attack American foreign policy and the support for America, the support America was providing for her allies. Why? Why? Why?
Why did he suddenly change that way?
Why?
Look, he is working for the
So
Russians, that's for sure, but he's also hates America.
he hates America.
I
Absolutely.
don't know
He
what
hates
triggered
it.
that,
Yes.
but he hates it.
Well, because there's accountability here, and
Mhm,
he grew up in Queens, surrounded by Italian mafia who were floating his business. I
mhm,
mean, what the Italian mafia? How do they operate? If someone is a pain, go get rid of them.
mhm.
Hey, call they all the illegal deals and whatnot. I mean, these are people who operate outside of the rule of law, or I mean, accountability. They do have occasionally, but I mean, he likes that type of thing. And then from there in the 80s, he was flooded with Russian mafia money, going forward and from with oligarch money and whatnot. I mean, these are people he's jealous of Putin. I mean, the fact that you have, here pesky CBS and ABC and others who are actually reporting on facts, whereas Putin throws these people out the window. He's like, why can't I do this? I want to be able to do this. And
Exactly.
and this is just where it comes from. He loved that power. Before he used to think, the Russians are compromised. A decade, like over, less than a decade ago, I was like, no, he actually just enjoys, this type of power. This is
But
all
he
it
does
is.
not know how much damage he's causing and how much, he does not see
He
maybe what he
doesn't
does.
care.
He doesn't
He
care.
doesn't
But
care.
all those people around him, all those enablers around him, all the Musks and all these other people are busy destroying America. They're busy stealing all the data, turning it into a surveillance state. It's just too much to handle. I'm gonna have to stop because I'm actually running out of power. I haven't, but it's so nice, Olga. Thank you again for being here from the Trump Tyranny Tracker. Everyone needs
Thank
to
you.
subscribe. I just love your passion around all these topics, and you always explain things so brilliantly. And the understanding what happened in Russia and understanding what happens in other authoritarian countries is how we understand what's going on today in America. It's not, we're not guessing. We see, and Olga, you've studied this very, very closely. We see the patterns, you follow the patterns, and you can see it's happening here. It's not guesswork. This is
No,
what's
it's
happening.
not
They're turning into
hypotheticals. We
yeah, this is research. So everyone needs to follow Olga. Thank you everyone for being here.
and
Monday,
likewise.
Dean is back here. Yeah, please follow me at narrative.org, narrativ.org. Love having your support and love having you share all the content that we do. And if there's one thing you can do today, call your senator. Call your senator today, call your senator tomorrow, call your senator the next day, call any senator and tell them
Every
that you
senator.
want these provisions in this new bill taken out, especially the contempt one, especially the nonprofit one. Thanks for being here,
Oh, I
everyone.
have an update. Sorry.
Okay. Okay.
The nonprofit one is stripped. So now we're down to contempt.
Okay. Oh, good. That is good news. How did
Yeah,
that happen? Well, that's good. I'm glad it's gone.
right after the hour 2 p.m.
Yeah.
I received a message with that it was taken out, that
Oh, that's really good.
provisions.
That is really good
So
news.
now
I was
we're
really
down to
worrying.
one. Call for one.
Yeah. So now we just have to get rid of the contempt. Well, we have lots more to get rid of, but start off with the
Yeah,
contempt
yeah,
one. That one really
and
needs to
fight
go.
for Medicare and Medicaid and and food. I mean, the fact that they want to starve children, I mean, honestly, is these people are monsters.
They really are. It's just
Like
it's
who,
beyond
like, I
reproach.
don't know who voted, like, oh, let's starve the kids of America.
It's going to take a
That should
long
be
time
the
to
new
claw this back.
slogan.
Olga, thanks very much for being here. Thanks to you at home for being here, wherever you are, and have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday.
Hi.